tired. I'm tired of turning the other cheek. I'm tired of trying to understand you. I'm tired of being your whipping dog. I'm tired of explaining to people what's good about you when I'm not even sure myself.
Because for the past few years, I feel like anytime we've gotten together, it's because I call you. I invite you to my house, do everything, all the stuff that we've done. It's because I invited you. You don't reach out to me like that.
Friendships among women are tricky. I'm not making some gross generalization about my own gender. I'm speaking from personal experience and several other women's anecdotes to prove my point. We've all been there. Maybe you've changed your diet and you're no longer the chubby friend. Suddenly your phone doesn't ring like it used to. You wonder if your alleged friendship was based on you posing less of a threat. I could go on, but you get the idea. The Renita Thomas story, one of my highest viewed videos, centered around a toxic friendship, and your comments had me in stitches. So many of you are team no friends, and I feel you. Once bitten, twice shy. I figured I'd bring you gals another story about a fatal friendship. Get ready to kill some time with me, bestie. Before we get to today's case, do yourself a favor and go ahead and subscribe. I cover the most bizarre cases. Be sure to support your girl and click the links in the description. Kimberly Black can forget about ever seeing her daughters graduate, helping them through their first heartbreak, or watching them walk down the aisle. She also lost the kind of friendship that only seems to exist in the movies or sitcoms. Sharice Swain was the kind of woman anyone would be lucky to have as a girlfriend. Hell, she was more like a play cousin. In one night, Kimberly's reckless behavior shattered the lives of those closest to her, and there's nothing she could do to make it right. For as long as she lives, she'll presumably have to deal with the overwhelming feelings of intense shame, massive guilt, and a deep sense of regret for her actions. This is the story of Kimberly Black. Sharice and Kimberly have been friends for the past 26 years. Their friendship runs deep. But as we all know, sometimes life will throw you a curveball, and dynamics change, and so do the people in our lives. Sharice was a 29-year-old woman, just living a relatively carefree life in Cleveland. She spent her days working at a factory and looking forward to the weekend, like most of us. She was all about having a good time with friends and family. Just good vibes all around. Kimberly, on the other hand, was going through it. Unlike Swain, she had a lot more responsibility. Black was a mother to 4 children, 2 of which were under the age of 3. Motherhood can be overwhelming, especially if you aren't getting the support you need. She had recently relocated to a neighborhood in East Cleveland where people move in and out frequently. It's a high crime area, poverty-stricken, and riddled with abandoned homes. Not the most idyllic place to raise a family, but a woman's got to do what a woman's got to do. On top of that, she's been using PCP on the daily. She's on disability for a plethora of mental health issues, so she can't contribute to society. All of this has left her feeling depressed. On the night of May 17th, 2012, fun-loving Sharice and 2 other women hop into her car. They're on their way to see Kimberly. Sharice is well aware that her girl isn't doing well, and she takes it upon herself to cheer her up. That's what friends are for, right? I'm sure that Sharice had jokes prepared, and they would laugh about the latest episode of The Real Housewives of Atlanta, one of her favorite shows, or just kick back and listen to some R&B or rap. According to reports, things were fine at first. The women were just hanging out in Sharice's car when one of the other ladies had to make a phone call concerning their child's babysitter. The 2 unidentified women left Sharice and Kimberly in the vehicle. Suddenly, Sharice and Kimberly began to argue. Black was under the delusional belief that her friend of 2 decades had killed one of her children. She was clearly out of it. Kimberly had been smoking cigarettes laced with PCP. All of a sudden, Kimberly does the unthinkable. She rushes out of Sharice's car and gets a sharp object and begins to stab Sharice in the face and slash her neck. Sharice must have been beside herself. The person that was closest to her had the capacity to inflict the deepest wound. This must have shaken her to the core. There's no mention of Sharice defending herself, and that might be because she was too stunned and didn't know what to do. Kimberly was out of her mind. In a rush to possibly get away from Kimberly, Sharice stepped on the gas, and she wound up hitting her friend, as well as Kimberly's 1-year-old daughter, Taraji, and her 2-year-old Kimsha. Then, Sharice crashed into a home across the street, causing the porch to collapse. It's pure chaos. Neighbors and most concerning, children have witnessed all of this go down. It's a literal train wreck, and it's about to get even worse. For no good reason, Kimberly begins to undress. She's now butt naked and making a run for it, several blocks away from the scene, screaming, "Save my children! Save my children!" Her cries are futile. Kimsha and Sharice would expire from their injuries at respective hospitals. It's clear that Kimberly's drug usage led to a chain reaction of negative events, and she's not the only one whose life has been turned upside down by PCP. PCP is such a potent drug. It makes users feel like they're floating on air or something. People lose all sense of reality and even begin to hear and see things that aren't there. The drug is responsible for some of the most curious crimes and cases of self-mutilation. Angel dust is the reason that singer Houston gouged out his own eyeball. It also played a part in Denise Barry's murder, a story I recently covered. The hallucinogen is partly to blame for this woman freezing her son's head. PCP has ruined so many lives, and it was about to do a number on Kimberly's. On May 21st, 2012, a judge set her bond at a whopping $1 million. Dazed and confused would be the best way to describe her demeanor during her arraignment. She just stared at the ground with her hands behind her head. I guess I wouldn't be in the best of moods if my bond was set that high, or I had just killed 2 people, but she was completely out of it. The manner in which Kimberly behaved may be an indication of the long-term effects of her consistent usage of PCP. It's been known to impair one's ability to maintain focus, distort your perception of reality. In some cases, it can even induce schizophrenia-like symptoms such as anxiety and paranoia. While Kimberly was detained, Swain's family and friends were left devastated. Shantae wrote the following on Sharice's obituary page: "My prayers go out to the whole Swain family. Reese's cup, you will be missed. Rest in paradise." Sharice's kindness is what stood out to Talisa, a former high school classmate. "I went to Regina with Reese. I remember her as being smart and kind. She would always give me rides home from school whenever I needed her to. My prayers go out to her family and friends. I know she will truly be missed by all. May God be with all of you through this difficult time. Rest in peace, Sharice." On November 20th, 2012, Kimberly is far more sound this time in court. That may have something to do with her facing up to 20 years in the big house, or a life sentence without the possibility of parole. That would wake anyone up. She can be seen shedding so many tears. Her attorney, John Luskin, dries her eyes with a napkin. It's like it's finally sinking in. You're in major trouble here. Sober up. On December 20th, 2012, the trial court sentenced Black to a combined sentence of life in prison without the possibility of parole for 33 whole years. In 2016, Kimberly's appeal was denied. She and her attorneys had the audacity to claim that the trial court committed 2 errors by merging the offenses and also failed to consider all mandatory sentencing factors required by RC 2929-13, its sanction imposed by degree of felony. In the document, Black's attorneys assert that Kimberly doesn't contend that her sentence was contrary to law. Instead, she argues that the trial court should have taken into consideration her mental health and mitigating factors, such as Black's claim that Swain gave her the PCP and she showed remorse for Swain's death. None of this would fly. The judge mentions Kimberly's past as a juvenile and her lengthy criminal record as an adult, which is riddled with misdemeanors and felonies, to serve as a reason as to why she's likely to reoffend. As of January 2016, Kimberly made no significant changes in her behavior based on the following things that were listed: your non-compliance on supervision, repeatedly violating supervision, and evidence of an obvious drug problem that remains unaddressed. Kimberly's life was one of hardship and poor decisions. Like most of us, some things were out of her control, but it's not a valid excuse to remain in a cycle of negativity. Her drug usage not only led to a downward spiral of her health, but it also had deadly consequences for her loved ones. She can never turn things around, but maybe her children can learn from her experience and abstain from drugs so they can avoid the same pitfalls. Sharice made an impression that will last longer than her days on earth. She was a thoughtful friend even until she took her last breath. Kim Sharufin and Sharice Swain, may you rest in eternal peace.